After my death, he dug me up from my grave and said, I want to marry you. He avenged me and left one final sentence. Finally, I can join you in the afterlife. Then he took his life in front of my tombstone. But I was reborn. This time, I was determined not to miss him again. Isolde Tremaine was dead. A 20-year-old girl in the prime of her youth was pushed from a tall building during the blooming season of lilies, and her blood splattered everywhere. Her body was carelessly buried in the desolate wilderness. With lingering attachment, her soul could not rest in peace, as she could not let go of her grandmother, with whom she had depended on for survival. When she tried to return to see her grandmother one last time, in the darkness of the night, she saw a white figure rushing towards her grave, radiating a chilling aura of gloom and unbearable pain. It wasn't until the figure knelt before her grave that Isolde realized it was Tristan Ivers, her former college mate. They hadn't had much interaction before, and Isolde was puzzled as to why he had come to her grave. In the next moment, she watched in shock as Tristan, without saying a word, began digging up her grave with his bare hands. Isolde was stunned. The young man pulled her body out of the grave. Bloodstains marred the body in uneven patches, and the face was disfigured beyond recognition. Tristan gazed down at the lifeless girl in his arms, his eyes instantly turning bloodshot, filled with a murderous fury. Grief overwhelmed him, tearing at his soul as if he were being slowly tortured, every emotion laid bare in agonizing sorrow. His once tall and dignified figure bent as his bloodshot eyes filled with sorrow, his back slumped in utter despair. In that instant, everything crumbled with his faith shattered, and all he saw before him was a world stained red with blood. Without uttering a word, the young man held the girl's body tightly, tears falling from the corners of his eyes, landing on her cold corpse. Tristan felt as if 1,000 daggers had pierced his heart, leaving it mangled and bleeding. He forced a bitter and defeated smile, and his voice trembling with sorrow, hoarse as he said, I'm sorry, I came too late. His bloodshot eyes and trembling body were filled with unbearable grief. Tristan carried her body home, carefully cleaned her up bit by bit, dressed her in new, beautiful clothes, and laid her to rest. He knew Isolde loved lilies, so he had planted many lilies in the backyard, and he buried her in the floral expanse she loved most. In the cool night breeze, the young man stood in the darkness, his gloomy eyes fixed on the gravestone in front of him. He reached out and brushed away the soft lily petals that had fallen on the grave. Suddenly, he let out a soft, cold laugh, but it was filled with sadness and regret. I never got the chance to shed the grime and filth and stand clean and radiant before you. To say, Isolde, I like you, and I want. His voice choked with emotion, his brows furrowed as he continued intermittently. I want to marry you. The young man bent down and gently brushed his hand against the gravestone, as if he were softly touching the girl's delicate cheek. Then he let out a cold, bitter laugh and lowered his head. There was helplessness, regret, and heart-wrenching defeat in his expression. Seeing this, Isolde was stunned. She had never known that he liked her. In that moment, the deep sorrow in his eyes was intertwined with an undeniable affection, especially when she heard him say, Sweetheart, don't worry, I will take care of your grandmother. His fingertips lightly touched the surface of her gravestone, and he whispered softly in his heart, Sweetheart, wait for me.